Good afternoon and welcome to the Sonar Market Insights webinar with Zach Strickland, aka the Sultan of Sonar, the Wizard of Data Analytics, and a close friend and confidant of mine. And I'm Brad Gumain, and this is actually our last Sonar Market Insights webinar. We're going to be repurposing this time to have a little bit more of kind of an entry-level 101 Sonar webinar. I think we mentioned it last week, so stay tuned for more information on that. But in the meantime, we're going to go over probably our most significant by far upgrade and enhancement to the Sonar platform from a pure functionality standpoint, usability, and some added data sets. Of course, as always, it wouldn't be a FreightWaves upgrade without that. So to start us off, we're gonna run through several of these upgrades, and Zach's gonna run point on those. And as always, remember you have your Q&A button there at the top of the screen, and ask questions throughout, or at the end we'll allow some time and we'll address any questions that you have throughout the webinar here at the end of the hour. But we'll let Zach kick it off here. And what do you got for us here, Zach?
All right. So as our last Sonar Market Insights webinar in this format, I'm going to give everybody a little treat. You guys are going to get a sneak peek behind the curtain a little bit as we're in our QA or our dev environment here. This is not live in Sonar yet, but I'm going to give you guys a quick little preview, teaser, if you will, over what's to come over the weekend. Some of this is subject to change, as any release is, but at the same time, you know, you guys are going to have, we have a lot to talk about in terms of what's coming up over the next few days in Sonar. And since we didn't really have a big release in preparation for this weekend and T19 coming up, we didn't really have anything this week, so I'm going to give you guys a quick look into what's coming up. So without further ado, you're looking at a map of colored lines, and we decided to add these because we thought the maps needed color. No, they are rail lines. So we've gone out and geocoded all the rail lines in the country, and you will see this coming up in the next release, and you'll see here all of them are color coded to the major Class 1 railroads and even some of the smaller ones. Florida, and I forget what GWR is, but all the major rail lines, you can toggle these on and off, color coded. It's pretty awesome. I got excited about this one, Brad.
That's fantastic, and I know that you were excited about it.
Yeah, because you can see where all these major railheads are and figure out exactly who's involved and what's going on where in terms of rail activity. You can know where the focal points are for individual rails. So that, of course, is not our biggest release. Our big guy.
It's just a teaser.
This is the intro. It's mainly because it's just the first map that was pulled up by default. So the big one is our critical events center. Now this one's huge. So this is essentially its own widget that's separate from the map, but how you'll get into it is through the map feature. And what this is a widget that's going to tell you exactly any kind of specific weather activity and critical event risk situation. So there's a risk score associated with certain events. The higher the number, obviously, the greater the risk. But you'll see these circles on here, and what those are places that we have identified as being assets, if you will, and a lot of them are refineries, the major ports. There's railheads in here, and a few other transportation-centric type assets, if you will, just to these were just put in there basically because if major weather systems come in and have an impact to these areas, this could damage transportation flow quite a bit. Hurricanes obviously are one of the biggest ones, but we also have hurricanes and wildfires and other severe weather that you see here. You can go in and you'll be able to look at all the different watches in the zones, and you can overlay all sorts of information on top of this. So going through this menu, you can toggle on and off, you know, severe weather advisories, thunderstorms, and you see there in the middle of the country today, it's pretty bad. And you hover over any segment of it, and it's going to highlight the watch area and tell you exactly what the risk is. And since there's tons of flooding if you've been watching FreightWaves now and seeing Nick
Every
Austin
day.
tell us exactly what to expect here. So you almost don't even need this if you watch that. But this is going to give you a lot more granular insight into where you need to pay attention to, especially if you're an operator in these areas. Trucking operators certainly need to be aware of any kind of severe weather or flood risks. I think there's actually been a lot of barge traffic being rerouted due to all the flooding on the Mississippi River this year. So that actually impacts trucking quite a bit as well. Fun fact for you.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah.
I wrote that down if you weren't paying attention.
So you can go in here and you can also change your overlays so we can actually see live weather and any of these severe thunderstorms that are pushing through right here. So your flood watch areas are out of the rain right now. Over here in Memphis, it's starting to storm. You can see precipitation forecasts. This is the amount of rain likely over the next 24 to 48 hours. Snowfall as well. You'll have to zoom out to see that, but you get the picture. Surface temps, highs and lows, as well as wind gusts, which are important in trucking. As we all know, those trailers like to get blown over, especially if they are empty in the high winds. So I think these are pretty awesome little features. Brad, anything to add on these?
I think they're fantastic. I mean, I think it's a massive upgrade from the precipitation layer that was on the map originally, as helpful as that was. And also a nice addition to the surface temperature and in the road conditions map that we still have access to as well. Those aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
and I know it's not tropical season here yet, but just wanted to point out, I'm going to scroll over to India because this is a worldwide map. Again, these are mostly oil refineries that you're seeing over here in India and ports. But you can zoom in on these anytime you see an orange. Let's just click on one. These orange have higher risk scores than the greens. So that means that these areas are the ones you need to pay attention to. You see that little 15 or 16, I should say, over there in the left corner. That's the wind wind advisory for the next 2 days, probably due to this little guy out here, Fani, coming into Bangladesh over the next few days. So you get a picture of how this works, especially if you have terminals or any port activity. You're going to want to pay attention to this weather center over the summer for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. So this is the Critical Events Center. And what else did we have in here?
Our next one we have listed is, we can probably go moderated chat. I think is a pretty awesome one. I know
it's not live yet, but this is going to be right up here. You're going to be able to, it's going to be sort of like a Reddit where you can post on, it's like a message board where you can interact directly with the market experts and anybody involved with Sonar on our end, but also you can interact with each other. You'll be able to post anonymously. So you can gain insights through that way. Any other Sonar users can help you. It'll help develop the community a little bit more. That way, if you have a question or you have another person that's using Sonar that may have a similar circumstance to yours, you can get feedback immediately. It's basically like a crowdsourced help desk, if you will, but it'll also help you get a little bit more,
well, I think it's something.
Community.
Oh yeah, I think it's.
I lost my word.
Yeah, it's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I'm the color commentary. I think it's something that we also, talk about a lot, and maybe not every single Sonar user takes advantage, but access to, guys like yourself, gals like yourself that are experts in their specific space and as it pertains to Sonar. So having a direct line where you don't have to set up a call or you don't have to wait for an email response to kind of have that direct message line, I think will be pretty important. And we're definitely excited to see how we can interact with our user base there.
And it will be moderated. So there will be somebody online that helps keep things in order. We will not be able to discuss any kind of price setting or anything like that on this because that would be illegal. So keep that in mind. There will be some ground rules set, just like there are in any online message board or posting site.
Next, let's take us to a little bit of maybe spoon-fed analytics. Or you're going to do video first?
Video widget. Let's do the
lanes.
do the video widget because that's what's next on the list that I was looking at. So As you know, we've produced a lot of video content over the past couple of months. A lot of it is FreightWaves now, but we also have other video items upcoming, such as, online training videos and any other videos that we deem are relevant to sonar or maybe even the transportation industry. All these videos are now going to be housed inside of Sonar. And
Make it bigger.
oh, you want to see
Yeah,
the
I
whole
want to
thing?
bring it full screen. There
You go. There you see Chad Prevost's face, the host of FreightWaves Now, if you guys are familiar with that. Again, you'll see instructional videos, FreightWaves Live, which is a thing that we've barely started doing, but it's going to be a lot more prevalent here in the near future as, it's kind of like a broadcasting type deal as we report on certain interest pieces, FreightWaves Now videos, and then various other videos, I guess whatever we deem fit to put in there, but it's going to be relevant to Sonar users and Sonar life, if you will.
Anything else you'd like to add on that?
Not on the video. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
I'll go now to your analytics. So we're going to add, this is just the beginning of something that we're going to be adding moving forward. This is going to be the Volatility Index right here. And this is, again, not a totally finished product just yet. So what you're looking at is a way for you to easily go out and identify markets that are experiencing more volatility. So things that are moving rapidly in one direction or the other. And we've color-coded those so you can quickly scroll through the markets today. And we've identified some of these markets as being more relevant than others. This is just step one in our analytics widget, if you will. There's going to be a few more things upcoming over the next year, but this is step one, the basically called a market sensitivity index. And what you're looking at is organized right now by market share, and any of these indices, outbound tender volume, reject, head haul, tender lead times, if any of those move with statistical significance. So what that means is if it moves outside of what we deem as normal, and we have a lot of data scientists that come out here and every day try to figure out what does normal mean. So anything outside of the realm of what we deem as normal activity will be highlighted in these boxes here with a moderate, aggressive, or very aggressive type coloring scheme. Moderate increase. So you'll be able to go and focus on these areas first in your day.
Yeah, and I really wish you would have said that with more excitement. I mean, this is a huge, huge step. I'm gonna call you out on our last webinar there. I thought you'd be excited about that.
This is data to me, so it's like super exciting to me just in general. This is every day.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to add some?
Well, I think it's great. I know a lot of the feedback that we've had is building and doing the legwork, which we certainly have some very savvy users. But I think this just creates kind of that quick look. You don't need to build a page with several markets, and you still can, of course. But for those that want to put this in the hands of multiple reps and kind of get them up and running from an on-the-floor decision-making process, I think it's going to be very powerful. And again, in the first iteration, but I think it's an exciting step that we've taken by creating this.
Yeah, no, I think the value add here is certainly making it a lot easier for you to identify what's going on in the freight markets, specifically those that are in the daily tactical space, trying to figure out exactly what they need to do that day. Of course, if anybody needs refresher courses on what increasing tender rejections are, you'll be able to tune in for that over the next few weeks as this webinar will actually dive into that quite a bit more.
Yes, that was a little bit of a low blow too. Sorry, I know you're excited.
Yeah, I am. I'm always excited about this.
Let's go. What do we got next? We got custom locations, which is...
Yeah, that's not going to be something that you can see real clearly yet, but it's also, the way it's going to work is you're going to be able to, I'll just go over it real quickly before we get to that. Actually, that's going to be the last thing we go over. But you're going to be able to import your specific locations that you are interested in into Sonar, and you'll be able to overlay them onto the map. I'm going to go ahead and create a map widget, you can talk while I'm.
Yeah, so I mean, as a potential, as a shipper, maybe you want to upload all of your origin destination points and kind of standardize the freight data, if you will, to see where and what we did here is we just kind of Googled target destinations, and we just built a map here with a collection of their destinations, just as kind of a test run. And you can see where they fall into our freight data locations. They may be from a sales standpoint or from a brokerage carrier standpoint, kind of an identifier if you want to target certain customers, or you want to put your terminals in there, or maybe you want to have access to just locations that you'd like to target and find freight in. So building some of these custom maps is going to be a huge value add and kind of customizing even more your specific dashboard and how you view freight movements and really freight data as a whole.
Yeah, no, the idea is that the real value of Sonar is not necessarily of what you're, just plainly seeing outside of you, but, to overlay your own information into it and import your own data, you'll actually see a lot more value add there in terms of, how does this relate to me? I've pulled up just the head haul index 2-week change just to give a quick example. So say you're a big carrier for Target and they have a facility here where you see the head haul index has actually been dropping quite a bit over the last little bit. That's a red flag that you need to figure out. Maybe there's some other activity that I need to do to prevent this from impacting my daily network or weekly network, if you will. So I can go ahead and make some adjustments to what's going on in that type of space really quickly. Let's see, other than the custom locations on map, we also have, we'll be able to upload custom indices. That's right. So you'll have your own indexes, and that's going to be limited to, our index granularities that we have now, but we'll have a template available for you to fill out. You can import your own data. So if you have your own tender rejection information, you'll be able to upload that and then see that inside of Sonar on the map itself as well, just like you can see some of these targets now, but it'll be color-coded, a heat map in the exact same manner that you see right now. So you can toggle back and forth, or you'll be able to mix it with the current information we're seeing out in the market and the rest of the country right now.
Yes, no, and I think that's going to be huge. And again, as you mentioned, being able to view your own data and, to see how you are represented, amongst this very large data warehouse, especially on the load transaction side, I think is something that will be extremely valuable on a user by user basis.
Yeah. So again, all these are making steps to give the user a little bit more interaction with Sonar with its own information. I think there's a huge value add there in terms of, if I'm trying to evaluate myself against the rest of the market, I want to be able to see it in the same space. So, and then our last thing that we're going to preview this week is going to be the digital momentum signal. So what these are is we've partnered with a company that allows us to see what you are talking about on the internet. So anytime that a company gets mentioned out in the interweb, there's going to be a signal or a marker. So if people are talking about Amazon, for instance, repeatedly, there's going to be a regular cadence of how much they're mentioning Amazon. Now, if they start spiking mentions of Amazon, well, that's a signal that there's something going on with Amazon. Now, some of these signals have a little bit more weight than others. So there's an algorithm that this company has come up with that figures out the appropriate weighting for these signals. So you can't just have, Amazon spit out a bunch of ads on Amazon, for instance, and all of a sudden they spike their own signal. They have news mentions and Twitter mentions and various other social media mentions that have different scores and different weighting that they built into this index. So this was made a lot for financial markets, but there is a definite freight market use case here where any kind of shipper that you're dealing with. And obviously we've talked about the macroeconomic implications to freight. Any of these signals that you see are going to have some sort of implication in the freight market, depending on who you're looking at. And that's going to be under this predictive analytics button that you'll see, which should release on Sunday. A lot of them will expand a little bit, but topics, Signal is the ticker that I forgot to mention here. AAA Cooper, you'll see all of these and more if you scroll through here, and that'll give you a good idea of what's going on with your whatever company of your interest is.
Interesting. Yeah. Kind of a different take on what we have, but I think from a freight market data standpoint, but definitely in line with the FreightWaves way of providing further information in the atmosphere, if you will, and bringing it all into one place so that we can view together with our trusty day-to-day freight market data information.
Yeah, it's another form of alternative data that I think is quite useful. Honestly, like at Target, if anybody uses Target or Home Depot or any of these bigger shippers, Walmart's, things like that, you'll be able to track and see how much they're mentioned. Amazon obviously is a huge factor in the freight market for those of you that follow them and their activity in entering the digital broker space this week, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And what's the number mean on the side there on the y-axis?
So the number, basically, all you need to know is that there's going to be a baseline for that particular number. What it means isn't as important as the movement.
Sure.
So just like with any other SONAR index, you really don't need to know the base value of it other than just know here's where the benchmark is. You can see here in the early part of February, and I just pulled up the average line. For those of you that have never seen that, it's a really useful tool that I like to use quite often just to give me a point of reference on something. So we can see there's a big spike here at the end of February, and you can see in March it actually had quite a few mentions, and then it's coming back down in April. So what was going on in March that was so important for Amazon? There you go. You can clearly see that this is a hot button item here in March. And a lot of this actually tracks with freight.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm going to do something a little nifty here, and I'm not claiming that I know the reason for this, but I do love to compare various data over different. I can get it to work. We are in our dev environment, so it may not work as well as I want it to, but there you go. So I've overlaid the outbound tender volume index with the digital momentum signal for Amazon, and you can see that there is a little bit of a correlation as it comes up in March and comes back down in April. Coincidence, Brad?
I think not.
I don't know. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. Who knows?
But yeah, there's clear correlations between disparate data sources that you can draw with some of this information, and that's really what the point of SONAR is trying to connect all the dots. We may not be able to understand exactly why something is occurring, but it is important to realize that it doesn't always matter what the why is, just that it's happening in general, and that's a lot of the reason that the freight market is in the condition that it is in, because nobody really knows what's going on in the first place. So now you'll be able to have even more information and maybe even an anticipatory signal, as a lot of these companies are closed off. You really don't know what they're doing behind closed doors. All of us work at companies that have their own inside circles and their own things that they're dealing with, especially these bigger corporations. Sometimes these things get leaked out, just like they do in the high school nowadays at Twitter. Or Facebook. Somebody wants to talk about it and it gets out, and that starts a whole spiraling action. So you can really see what's going on in the out in the world without having to have legitimate hard inside information on it. A lot of potential here. That's what I'm saying.
So in summation here, some just awesome stuff that we're putting into Sonar. I mean, I've really got to say, I don't know if we timed it up perfectly to be our last webinar and together and right off into the sunset. But I know we're really excited to get to work with our customers and our prospects on all of the new things that we've done here with Sonar and that we'll continue to do. We look forward to seeing many of you here at the beginning of next week at our event, Transparency 19, where we'll have Sonar training as well. May 6th through 8th. If you're in the area in Atlanta and you haven't signed up yet, shoot us a message. We'll get you down there. We'll leave the next few minutes open, kind of per usual. If you guys have any final questions, we do have.
Oh, I do want to address one question we got already about the futures indices that we have out there. We ourselves are not technically allowed to really publicly discuss some of those right now. But we would be happy to talk with you offline or get you in touch with the people that are, really certified to discuss futures. Just because we do have a responsibility to be as accurate and responsible as possible about influencing any kind of financial markets, just as anybody would know in the industry. We can't imply or even infer any kind of forward-looking information. We're not trying to be that. We're simply just trying to provide the information itself. So we have to be very careful with that, just so you know, we're not ignoring you, but certainly reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. We've got the people that can discuss this with you in great detail.
Yep, and I think I have your information as well. The panel or the listener that posed the question. So we'll reach out to you after the webinar here. Definitely appreciate the question. We'll also get Zach to read his emails. He's got way too many showing up there. So appreciate that.
I'm on a lot of distribution lists.
So we'll hang tight for the next 5 minutes if you guys have any further questions. If not, I guess we'll see you around. It's not goodbye. It's see you later, right?
Exactly.